Hello, folks. Looking forward to the Fallon Forum today. We're going to be talking about the fiscal cliff. What do you think? Shall we just jump? Dr. Charles Goldman's going to join me for that conversation, and we will talk about Susan Rice and her problems from both the Republican direction and the Democratic side. We're also going to talk about some other issues. Stay tuned. We'll be with you in just a minute. Hey, folks. The ongoing battle with technology here. Anyway, we're rolling. Dr. Charles Goldman's going to join us later. He's got some emergency stuff going on in his work as a surgeon. I would not want to be responsible for somebody not being treated properly. So, hey, he's going to call in when he gets a break here shortly. But we got a few other things I got to talk about. A $206,000 salary. How does that grab you, folks? I would love, actually, no, I would not. I would feel bad earning $206,000. I wouldn't know what to do with all that money. I'd have to give half of it away to my friend Dan Fry back there in the producer's studio. But you know, that's what Nancy Sebring used to make when she was with the Des Moines Public Schools. Now she is, of course, persona non grata in any school district in the country. And the board is talking about upping the salary to $300,000. And I'm having a really hard time understanding this logic. The Des Moines School Board, according to the Des Moines Register's article, is wagering that a big bump in pay may help attract top caliber candidates. Like Nancy Sebring wasn't seen as a top caliber candidate at the time. I mean, you know, the salary for the head of the Des Moines School District keeps going up faster than anyone else's salary does, except for a handful of other big government employees, but also, of course, corporate CEOs and stuff. But that's not what this is about. You've got to love the job. You've got to love kids. You've got to love being a part of the educational system. So, you know, if we're just trying to lure the person who likes the biggest salary, I think that's so that's so wrong-headed. One board member, Joe Jongleward, says, "I think that this is a critical time in our community." Okay, it always is. And then he goes on to say, and money does make a difference. Oh, give me a break. I mean, yeah, money makes a difference, but you don't need $300,000 to land the best possible candidate. And in fact, I think the guy who's doing the job right now, Tom Ahart, is doing a fantastic job. And he's at 30 years, over 20 years at any rate, here in the Des Moines district. I mean, why not hire a guy who's been able to take over and manage the mess left by the Nancy Sebring scandal, and who knows the district inside and out? Yeah, this bugs me. Cities do it as well. They try to hire somebody from somewhere else, for city manager. And in this case, they try to hire somebody from who knows where, with what kind of background. I mean, there's even talk of not looking at somebody who's got an educational background, but somebody who has more business experience. No, the Des Moines Public Schools, our public schools are not a business. Government should not be run like a business, okay? We've seen how well that worked out on Wall Street, or with the Exxon Valdez, or you name it. Pick your failed corporation du jour, and we certainly don't want our schools being run like a business. You know, I don't know where the board is coming from, but it looks like they have a majority of people who like this idea. Not just Jongleward, but Terry Caldwell Johnson, Pat Sweeney, and Cindy Ellsburn all said they think that amount of money would help attract top caliber candidates. Okay. The board members go out. Jongleward goes on to say, I think that this is a critical time in our community, not just a critical time in our district. We need to attract the best candidates, and money does make a difference. Again, I am just in awe that... All right, so the moderate voices on the board, Dick Murphy, Connie Boson, and Bill Howard all want to advertise the position at $275,000. That's still like 70 grand above what Sebring was getting paid. I mean, so I'm sorry, folks. You are desperately out of touch. And some of these folks are my friends, and I like I love the Des Moines School District overall. I mean, my kids got a great education there. But if you think that's the answer, gosh, you need to get a little more public input, and I hope that people will take the time to call and say, hey, maybe this is not the right idea. Okay, government doing something right. You ready? Here we go. 6th Avenue. That's my old neighborhood up there in the inner city. This is, of course, the 6th Avenue corridor that runs from downtown Des Moines straight up to Highland Park. It could become a green model for Des Moines. And this is exciting to me because this was something I talked about a lot as a resident of that area and as a legislator who was working on responsible land use. And to me, that meant both controlling urban sprawl, limiting growth on our farm ground, and encouraging more resources to go into redevelopment. And yeah, certainly, the 6th Avenue corridor is a prime place for intelligent redevelopment. And so it looks like it is happening. Well, I know there's been an effort the last few years to really begin to envision what might happen. And if you're not familiar with the street, well, years ago it used to be a much narrower street, but of course they decided to make it 5 lanes, 2 each direction, and a turning lane, a continuous turning lane running in the middle. And again, a continuous turning lane makes no sense. The only place you want a turning lane is at the intersection. Okay, and when they widen the street, how do they do that? Well, they took it away from the sidewalk and the parking strip. So now, of course, there's no parking strip. Or actually, there are parking strips along 6th Avenue. And I kid you not, some of them are this wide. Little strips of grass, that wide. That's your parking strip. Okay, so you really can't grow a tree there. Maybe you can grow a dandelion. Yeah, okay. And then the sidewalks, also, of course, much narrower than they were ever intended to be when there used to be consideration for pedestrian traffic. And in some places, you've got telephone poles in the middle of the sidewalk. I have seen people in wheelchairs. I have seen mothers pushing strollers, and fathers, for that matter, pushing strollers, who have to somehow navigate around this mess. And of course, when the street gets plowed, oftentimes the snow gets plowed right onto the sidewalk because there's nowhere else for it to go. There's no parking strip. Again, parking strip that wide. Okay, so this place is in desperate need of a better design, and partly it's not just, if you design something that is not very pedestrian friendly, if people have options, they won't use it. Look at West Des Moines. They've designed sidewalks that could accommodate pedestrians. Unfortunately, the design of the business districts, basically we have strip malls and big box stores. Nobody's going to walk that stuff. But in the 6th Avenue corridor, you have a lot of amenities that people need, and poor people who don't have cars, they walk anyhow. They walk this street because they have to, even though it is dangerous. I mean, it really is. Whenever I would walk from University and up that block, I would always take 8th or 9th or 7th, anything to avoid being on 6th, because you take your life in your hands. Again, you are only a few feet from traffic that is roaring through there. 4 lanes, 2 lanes either direction, plus that turning lane. It's not an intelligent or healthy design at all. And it is exciting to see that changing. Frank County's on board. The EPA is on board. This is part of the Greening America's Capitals project. And Director Laura Peters, she's the director of the 6th Avenue Corridor project, looking at, again, I assume, gosh, the sidewalks are the absolute worst element of this current streetscape. I assume that is primary focus. But Peters also cites examples of changes that would involve permeable paving. Again, that's a great idea because for folks who don't know what that is, permeable paving allows your runoff to go straight down instead of to head down, into the storm sewers, into the river. It allows more water to stay in the area where the rain falls. Again, this year, not been a big issue, but you're talking 2008, 2010, 1993. Yeah, you want that. So yeah, good investment, a little more expensive, but a lot of wisdom to that. Also, rain gardens, again, which capture and slow storm water. All that stuff's good. I hope And again, I'm almost certain that this is the case, but I want to make sure that as they move forward on this, they make that street a lot more pedestrian friendly, and they slow the traffic down. You know, they've slowed it down on Ingersoll a bit. And in doing so, not only did they find a way to accommodate bicycles, but they increased parking. You know, parking used to be just linear, just parallel parking. Now it's diagonal parking. So the street is a little bit slower, but so, you know, so minimally that people are not noticing any difference of any substance in their drive from downtown, in this case, all the way up to Polk Boulevard. They're not noticing any difference. It's having a very positive effect. It creates a space where bicycles can be encouraged to use the street. So yeah, I'm hoping that in the redesign of 6th Avenue, they accommodate bicycles, they slow the whole thing down, and they provide sidewalks that actually are sidewalks and not death traps. And I really am surprised that more pedestrians aren't killed up there. You know, I mean, you've got a lot of low-income people, no options, and such a horribly minimal pedestrian access that really I am surprised there aren't more accidents. Okay, so couple other things to go over before we roll into our main topic, and that, of course, is the fiscal cliff. Shall we jump? We'll find out. I've been critical of Walmart for moving so much of its production overseas, and they've been easy to criticize this past couple of weeks because of all the horrific fires that have occurred. Three garment factories have seen fires, one killing 120 people in Bangladesh, and the other killing 14 people in China. And all of those people, women, ages 18 to 20. It's unconscionable. And if we had a just system of government, of economy, of court, there would be CEOs of big corporations that help make these sweatshops possible. They would be going to prison. Okay, so and Apple has come under criticism as well. And of course, I am an Apple guy. You see, I got my little Apple right there. Yeah, Apple. All right. So I'm an Apple guy, and I know that we all have compromises to make. Here's another compromise: cell phone. But I'm happy to learn that Apple is hoping to make some of its Macs in the U.S. The CEO of the company says it will spend $100 million to move production of one line of its products from China to the U.S. Okay, and I'll be interested to see how much public money they try to land. I won't be surprised if they if states pony up a bunch of money. Again, not a fan of that. That type of economic development is not compatible with my vision of what government should be doing. But the head of Apple, Tim Cook, says the company will produce one of its existing lines of Mac in the U.S. next year, 2013. In a couple different interviews, Cook said the company would spend $100 million to move production to the U.S. from China, and he says, "quote This doesn't mean that Apple will do it ourselves, but we'll be working with people and we'll be investing our money." Okay, that's what I was warning you about. That's basically saying, yeah, you taxpayers are going to help us, and it's kind of, I mean, it is kind of a tough position to be in. You know, it's hard to say no to that. I mean, and my default position is no. Corporate welfare is wrong, and you know, it never used to be the way it is now. So anyway, I would expect that's exactly what that means. You know, it doesn't mean we'll do it ourselves, meaning you, the taxpayers. So Tim Cook wants you to help pony up some money for Apple to move from China to the U.S. Again, not excited about the corporate welfare, but in the big scheme of things, it probably means closing down a sweatshop or multiple sweatshops in China, creating jobs here in America that hopefully are going to be, well paying, but we'll see. Let's see. Like most consumer electronics companies, Apple forges agreements with contract manufacturers to assemble its products overseas. However, the assembly accounts for a fraction of the cost of making a PC or smartphone. Most of those costs lie in buying chips, and many of those are made in the U.S. So again, there's some good business sense for them to move here. So again, state governments, local governments, do not be duped into giving them too much money if and when they come knocking. There are other reasons, there are market-based reasons why it makes sense for them to move here. And I will say this too, I think there are public pressure reasons. There are political reasons. And again, the unfortunate, the horrific garment fires have helped raise the public awareness in recent weeks about the wrongness of all the outsourcing that has gone on for so long. Okay, one more thing to talk about, the climate change issue. It's always on my agenda. It should be on everybody's agenda. Rekha Basu's agenda today, she writes about it. She says, it's time we end our apathy and look at solutions. Well, actually, that time was about probably 30, 40 years ago. Maybe when Jimmy Carter was president, we saw the beginnings of efforts to end apathy and look at solutions. And then, of course, along came Ronald Reagan, and don't ask what you can do for your country, but ask whether you were better off than you were 4 years ago. So we had quite a change. And unfortunately, we need to be really, really ramping up our commitment to doing something about this. Rekha writes about the UN Climate Change Conference in Qatar, a 2009 goal of keeping global temperature rise below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not going to be met. I mean, the largest polluters in the world, and certainly China and India are part of the problem. Europe less so. Europe has done a much better job. The U.S. certainly part of the problem, and a lot of the other smaller developing nations to a lesser extent. Because of that, we're not going to meet that goal of 3.6 degrees, keeping it under a 3.6 degree rise. And again, we've already risen. The temperature has already gone up 1 degree Fahrenheit. And we each have to do our part. I'm trying to do my part by bicycling, I hang my clothes, I raise a bunch of my own food. I'm taking Megabus next week to go visit my kids. We do what we can, and everybody should be doing what they can. But I'm fully aware that it's not going to. We're not going to get our hands around this problem without a collective effort, and the collective effort comes from us doing with government what we can't do individually. And by that I mean raising fuel efficiency standards, for example. And I look at what the effort that Rekha talks about, how colleges and universities are beginning to divest their endowment funds from coal, oil, and gas companies. 2 colleges so far have taken that step. Unity College in Maine and Hampshire College in Massachusetts. And I actually went to school not too far from Hampshire College. So this is encouraging. And this reminds me of the efforts back in the 70s and 80s to divest funds from businesses that were prominent allies of the South African government, the government responsible for apartheid and so much misery in the first part of last century, and actually into the second part of it as well. So this is a good strategy. This is a good strategy. Again, it's coal, oil, and gas companies are not the only problem, but they are probably the biggest part of the problem because, and again, they're the biggest part of the problem in conjunction with our own inability to restrain ourselves. But again, the Union of Concerned Scientists has been on this, and so have a lot of other groups. But they're an organization that have worked on peace and on environmental issues, and they are really working hard on this issue. They're stepping up to the plate. They've called on all of us to put pressure on our government, on President Obama and on Congress, to cut our oil use in half. And right now it's about $2 billion worth of money we spend a day. Even that's not going to do it. But again, we're not going to get there with you and me and everyone else who feels like it riding their bikes, or even all of us driving Priuses. We're going to get there by concerted efforts to require higher mileage levels, by doing more, by creating a better train system, by expanding opportunities in solar, wind, geothermal. It's not a scientific problem. We know how to do these things. There are still changes, obviously, that need to be made that will make these systems work better. But right now, it's not a technology problem. It's a political problem. And again, the more we can put pressure on our government, the better. And again, the more we can put pressure on our colleges and universities. I would like to see somebody here in Des Moines launch an effort at Drake, at Grandview, at Simpson, at DMAC. Let's pressure these campuses, the leadership of these campuses, to embrace this movement. it would have a significant impact. Again, these kinds of divestment initiatives work if they are targeted. I've seen them work against Nestle regarding the issue of formula milk being used to replace breast milk in Africa. I've seen it work on General Electric to get them to back off their investment years ago in nuclear weapons. It could be used to put pressure on energy companies to move away from oil, coal, and gas. And again, Mid-American is doing some of that. I mean, I'm not a Mid-American energy fan. Most of their energy still comes from coal, some from nuclear, but about 20% now comes from wind. They didn't get into that because they thought it was a good idea. They got into it because the legislature pressured them to do it, because people pressured the legislature to make them do that. That was a specific policy initiative, a systemic change that has meant a significant investment in wind. Again, I'd like to see the playing field set up in such a way that more, small farmers and individual, small businesses can also thrive in wind energy. But this is a start, and this divestment campaign is a great idea, and I thank Reka and others for bringing it to our attention. And I want to thank, and speaking of organizations that do a great job on energy, Physicians for Social Responsibility has been a leader in that. I also want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, another organization that's done a great job when it comes to raising the alarm on climate change. And I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the program. Reynolds Energy Solutions offers free energy audits. Tim Reynolds will come and check out your place and tell you what you are doing, what you could be doing differently to save energy and save money. Again, it's the responsible thing to do. But if you need another motivation, it'll also save you money. The audits themselves are free, so give Tim a shout at 802-2801, 802-2801. We'll be back in a few minutes on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, somewhere in there we're supposed to hear music. Anyway, Max Wellman, folks, got a concert coming up this weekend. So actually, it's a concert series, and it's going to run from this Friday through the following weekend. And it's his Home for the Holidays concert. I'm going to be checking it out tonight, opening night, and I suggest you put it on your calendar. Max Wellman is one of the wonderful young talents we have here in Des Moines, and delighted to have him stay in Des Moines. Because we are the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent now. So heck, why go somewhere else when you could stay here and make things happen? And again, we need to support the folks who are practicing their art, their music here. Also tonight, folks, is a nice art opening at the Fitch Gallery down on 15th Street. So much happening. Anyway, and of course, also this weekend on Sunday, it's the Rosalind Stone holiday concert as well, and I'm going to be playing in that. I'm delighted with that. That's going to be Sunday night at 7 p.m. at Unity Church, which is just south of Grand Avenue on 31st Street in Des Moines. That's the Rosalind Stone. Angelic voices. I'm honored that they let me play. So anyway, what else I want to tell you about? I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I want to welcome Charles Goldman to the show. Charles, are you with us? Hello, Charles.
Are you there, Ed?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, I can hear you. Good.
Where the heck are you?
I'm sitting in my office at the hospital.
You don't have a scalpel in one hand and the phone in the other.
We just ran overtime, so I'm sorry I couldn't join you physically. So what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about the fiscal cliff. The title of the show is Fiscal Cliff: Jump ?
Well, I think the best description of the fiscal cliff was in a Frank Rich piece just yesterday, in which he said this is the Y2K of 2012 or 2013.
Meaning the non-event?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, his point, which I think is absolutely true, is, well, first of all, I mean, we created this fiscal cliff by, of course, the agreements of the president to this deal, a year ago. And I think it's pretty clear what the end point of this is going to be, which is taxes are going to go up on people who pay over $250,000. There's going to be some deal on cutting spending. And the double-dip recession, if it occurs, will not occur because of the fiscal cliff, but because of the recession in Europe and our other trading partners who really don't have much demand at this point for American product.
So now, what doesn't bother me about the fiscal cliff is it may be our only opportunity to take a big bite out of military spending. And
but interestingly, no one's really even mentioning that.
But the Pentagon is preparing for it. The Defense Department has begun, as of this week, to look at ways in which it might cut $500 billion out of its budget.
Well, more than likely, they'll hire a consultant and pay them a lot of money to do that.
I'll do that work.
Well, I mean, it's the obvious question, which is, when they're looking at $600, $800 billion in cuts. It almost always, when we hear it from the House, controlled by the Republicans, is talking about the quote entitlements, which I wish somebody would point out to them that these entitlements were paid for by people with their contributions to Social Security through the payroll tax,
right,
and Medicare taxes,
right.
So I'm not sure how that's an entitlement. In fact, essentially what you've done with Medicare taxation is buy insurance.
So let me ask you another question that keeps coming up recently is the Republican effort to increase the eligibility age from 65 to 67. I mean, the Republicans are losing on a lot of talking points on this battle, but that's when they might actually have some traction. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that the absolutist position that some people on the left are taking is untenable in the same sense that the absolutist position from the right is. The Grover Norquist no tax increases. Because let's face it, I mean, people live a lot longer. I mean, if you make it to age 75 now and you're a female in the United States, the overwhelming likelihood is you're going to live another 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, we're living 8 years longer than we were in 1965 when Medicaid was established.
And the population the demographics are completely different, which is the elderly group is going to be the largest group in the United States.
Right.
And so there is a reality of we're going to have to make some decisions. And people are healthier in some ways. They do work longer. And I don't think it's completely unreasonable. I mean, essentially, the problem you have is that the longer you force people to work because they have to maintain health insurance, the longer that's just another number of years in which there are not jobs opening at the entry level
right.
for people to enter who are younger.
Yeah.
And so in terms of social policy, I don't think it's unreasonable to say you want to push Medicare back to 67.
Okay. Now, ARP is of the other opinion, of course. They're pretty much opposed to it, vocally opposed to it, and ramping up a publicity campaign against it.
Right, but I mean, you get the ARP stuff when you're 55 now. So...
no, you start getting the ARP mailings when you're 49.
Oh, is that right? Well,
I throw them away.
I think, one of the problems that people have with ARP, and maybe it's not unreasonable, is that one of their biggest supporting entities is their Medicare excess insurance. I mean, they're basically a big medical insurer.
You're talking about, I think it's called Part D?
Well, they sell policies that cover what the basic in-hospital Medicare does not cover.
Right.
And I think they actually do it through United Healthcare, as I think their main partner in doing that. Right. So they have an interest in the system staying the way it is. And clearly, if people are put on the rolls at 67 instead of 65, that's fewer people who are going to be interested in their insurance product.
Right.
I personally don't have a huge problem with saying, particularly with people who are continuing to work, as many people do, why do they need to be put on Medicare at 65?
So, and how do you? How do you think other insurance companies will come in on this? Are you have a sense that they'd be opposed?
I would suspect they're going to be opposed because that means that they're going to be insuring people 2 years longer into a high risk period where they're going to have to potentially pay more on them.
Doesn't that make you uncomfortable, Charles? The Republicans and you are on the same page. And the insurance companies are on the other side. No, you're on the same. I said that wrong. Yeah.
Well, again, it gets back to the same argument, which is why do we use employment as the way we insure people for medical care?
Right. Yeah.
And if we would separate medical care from employment, it would give. Well, I mean, maybe that is the answer. It would give workers more freedom.
Yeah.
And if it gives workers more freedom, it gives them more power.
Right.
But really, if
you lost the insurance companies on that one, of course.
Well, the insurance companies have a role in places where there is single-payer systems. They play the role that they kind of play now of middleman.
Certainly. And it depends. It varies from country to country. I believe in Germany it's a more significant role than it is, for example, in England.
Correct. Yeah, in Germany, they basically continue to exist as regulated utilities, essentially. And they are given a edict from the government as to what is the expectation for basic coverage. And they have to figure out a way to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And then they're able to work within a regulated free market to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But no, I don't have a problem. I think any deal with the Republicans that doesn't include something of a realization that you can't continue as a politician, which of course they all want to do, is stand in front of people who are over 65 and say, "Oh, don't worry, nothing's ever going to change." I just don't think that's financially tenable.
Yeah, and again, I think it's also not politically saleable. And again, it'll be interesting to see if the united forces of ARP and the insurance industry can defeat that element of the conversation. But
well, the other issue is you'll go on and watch the shows, you read on the internet, and someone will say, "Well, if we didn't spend $200 billion in Iraq, we could have done this here in the United States."
Sure.
Well, that is true, but if we don't spend $200 billion in Iraq, that is going to be another area where you're going to have to figure out how you're going to take people who are trained to do something and have them do something else.
Now, that's one thing that bothers me, is there's no conversation about reducing military expenses in the current conversation about avoiding the fiscal cliff.
Yeah, I'm actually stunned because it seems such an obvious area.
Well, it's so obvious that it was in the agreement reached last year to the tune of $500 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, why is that not part of the conversation now?
Well, I still think you have, with even the Democrats in power, a group of people who still believe in the robust influence of the United States elsewhere, and have not really been able to extract themselves from the basic imperialistic view that emanates from D.C., whether it's Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for them to turn around and say, we're going to make the military smaller. And especially in a time which is being sold to the American people as so dangerous.
Yeah, and we have, of course, Democrats aren't really good at that either. We've had one of our own congressmen, one of our own Democratic congressmen, Dave Lobsacks. His position is that it's a jobs bill, and you've got to support the defense budget because it's a jobs bill. And when you're stuck in that rut, it's hard to move the conversation anywhere else.
But the thing is that we don't have a comprehensive idea of where do we go in the future. I mean, the solution seems to be that we're going to create jobs by doing the things we've done in the past, and that we're going to bring back housing. And this is the way, because it was part of the last boom, that if we just bring back the demand for houses, everything will be okay. Well, the fact of the matter is that in some sense the market is speaking. People who are in their 20s and 30s have shown a disinclination to migrate out to the suburbs and live in the big houses on the large swaths of land. They're actually showing much more interest in living closer within cities, perhaps, and I dare to say it, in townhouses and apartments, as opposed to freestanding houses. And if the idea is you're going to bring back the economy on the back of building more homes further and further from city center, that's just not going to happen.
No, it's not. I mean, I was talking to Kurt Blanc a couple of days ago. The Crane building just opened up in downtown Des Moines. Already 90% full. Pretty darn good. I mean, you're right. Young people and a lot of other folks, too, are moving back to the urban core where they can live lives that are more sustainable. So, yeah, we're kind of off on a tangent there, of course. But are you able to stay with us for another segment and talk about the Susan Rice problem?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but let me just to wrap this one up. Your contention is if we do go over the fiscal cliff, it'll be about as non-monumental as the what was it called again? The
Y2K.
Y2K bug a few years back.
Yeah, no, I'm actually much more worried about the last day of the Mayan calendar.
well, Really? Now, what's going to happen on the 21st of December?
Oh, I probably nothing. It'll be like every apocalyptic event. There'll be somebody out there who said it was going to happen and said, "Oh, but I got it wrong. I've adjusted it. Now it's February 8th."
Right, or next year. Yeah, okay. Well, we had that happen last year, of course, too.
Yeah.
But, all right. So, yeah. In other words, you're not worried about either the Mayan apocalypse or the fiscal cliff.
No, because yes, there are studies showing that if uncorrected, there will be a worsening in the recession, but it's not going to happen on January 2nd.
Right.
And it's pretty clear that the Democrats have won this fight about raising taxes. But what they need to do is they need to also come up with something that makes sense in terms of reduction of expenses. And little tweaks of Social Security, little tweaks of Medicare should be on the table.
Right.
I don't see going from 65 to 67. Right. Even if you simply say if you're still employed, you're not getting Medicare. You can't have both.
Do you think the president and Congress will reach an agreement by January 1st?
Yes.
All right. But if they don't, no big whoop.
Correct. I think so if they reach the agreement January 14th, I don't think you're going to see any difference. And, it wouldn't be so bad if people found out what it would be like when government largesse to them is reduced. Because, the same people who yell and scream, the Tea Party, 75% of them are on the dole in some form.
Yeah, okay.
So let's see how happy they are when their Social Security checks don't show up.
Right. Huh. All right, well, let's switch gears when we come back and talk about Susan Rice, who has not only problems from the right, but from the left as well. Dr. Charles Goldman, my guest here on the phone with us from his office at Mercy Hospital, I believe.
From the undisclosed bunker at Mercy.
You and Mark Levin sharing a bunker together somewhere.
Exactly.
All right, yeah. If you want to join the conversation, folks, 244-0077. Toll free, it's 855-244-0077. I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of the program. Gateway is at 20th and Woodland in Sherman Hill. And, of course, Gateway is a great grocery store with everything you could possibly want, from food to cosmetics to beverages. They've also got the cafe, breakfast, lunch, and supper, but they've also got a fantastic catering service. And if you've got a Christmas party coming up, a Hanukkah party, a Festivus party, a New Year's Eve party, consider Gateway Market. Again, thank them for supporting the alternative to right-wing radio, but also thank them for being a good locally owned business that keeps their money here in Des Moines in central Iowa. So give them a shout, Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Once I had a secret love that lived within this.
That's Max Wellman, folks, and I hope you'll check out one of Max's Home for the Holiday concerts starting tonight. I'm going to go tonight, but I know he's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, so check out his website, maxwellman.com, and thank him for being a fantastic musician and a great contributor to Des Moines' cultural renaissance. I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering for sponsoring this segment of the program. Again, Tally's is a gym in the Beaverdale neighborhood, northwest side of Des Moines. Check them out, folks. They got a fantastic Sunday brunch, but also open for breakfast, lunch, or lunch and supper. And also doing, like Gateway, a heck of a lot of catering and open for large crowds. If you got a family event you want to do, good time of the year to book that, and good time to book it is early because they do get a lot of that this time of the year. All right, folks. I want to remind you too that on January 13th, Lee Camp, comedian activist Lee Camp, is coming to Des Moines to do a fundraiser. It's his first ever comedy show in Des Moines in Iowa. And it'll be to help me with my legal struggles in response to Leonard Boswell's lawsuit. Yuck, that just keeps going on. Okay, well, Charles Goldman's with us. We're going to switch gears and talk Susan Rice. Charles, welcome back. Susan Rice, is her problem a Benghazi problem, or do we have other issues here?
Well, no. I mean, we clearly have other issues. First of all, the attack on Susan Rice almost has nothing to do with Benghazi. This is, I would guess, as low a point as John McCain could have gotten to. This is clearly about his personal anger at her, at the president, at the fact that the Republicans weren't able to make hay with Benghazi as a political issue, the fact that during the 2008 campaign, Susan Rice, who's very close to the president, served as a surrogate out on the campaign trail and roundly criticized McCain as too inflammable and unstable to be the commander-in-chief, and this is all personal. I mean, let's go back to 1983. In fact, one of my favorite moments in the lead up to the election this year was on Fox News. One of my favorite people, I'm sure yours too, Rudy Giuliani, was being interviewed, and they asked Giuliani about Benghazi, and he went off and gave kind of the talking point about how this is the biggest foreign policy failure ever of the United States. And then he went on to say something which I almost had to laugh at the TV. He said, if Ronald Reagan were president, this would never have happened. Now, let's remember how many people were killed at Benghazi, as unfortunate as this whole thing is, obviously.
Right.
Four people.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to 1983. The Marines are in Beirut for reasons that were not entirely clear policy-wise, because what was going on? The Israelis and the Christian militias had both invaded Lebanon in 82, and there were killings going on in the Palestinian refugee camps, and the government in Lebanon had asked the Americans and the multinational force to come in to keep the peace. But of course, as often happens in these confused situations, we decide to start taking sides. And the end result is, on October 23rd, 1983, 240 Marines are killed in a suicide truck bombing.
Right.
When it's found out afterwards that the Marine guards at the barracks didn't even have their weapons with live ammunition in them.
Yeah.
240 Americans were killed. 60 French paratroopers at another attack were killed. The president, Ronald Reagan at the time, said, this is not going to convince us to back down or anything else. And of course, they redeployed the troops 3 months later. And the week of the attack, the Grenada invasion occurs.
Right.
That, great military victory for the United States to save, what was it, the medical students who were at the school there?
Well, they were a huge threat to our country, Charlie.
But so the point is that you have a president who allowed 240 Marines to be killed on a mission whose point was, actually, there was no point to it.
Yeah.
And no accountability there. But, Susan Rice, what did Susan Rice actually do? They handed her a piece of paper to read on the Sunday programs. Why was she doing it? Because Hillary Clinton said she wouldn't. Because Hillary Clinton was tired and she doesn't like the Sunday shows, and they gave it to Susan Rice.
Now you're referring to Benghazi again. Now.
Correct. Now we're back to Benghazi. Yeah. And what does she say? So she reads a piece of paper that basically we now know was given to her by the CIA and whatever other intelligence organizations were involved in this. And because she didn't absolutely say it was Al-Qaeda leading a terrorist attack on an American embassy, they've been pillaring her as incompetent.
Well, I think they've been looking for any hat they can hang their
that's what this is all about.
Hat on, and so I mean, I've always thought. I remember when this first happened. I remember arguing with Frank on the show. I'm just thinking this is a non-issue, and I think it's become even more clear that it is a non-issue.
It is a non-issue because this is a confused area of the world. We still, to this day, don't know it's Al-Qaeda. I mean, every terrorist activity that happens in the world is called Al-Qaeda. There's still loyalists to Gaddafi all over that country.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
How do we know they're not the ones behind it? The week before the attack, a number of bodies showed up that had been mutilated and tortured that were, if you may have seen them previously on the video of Gaddafi being captured. And these people were identifiable as the ones who captured him. And his loyalists, who still operate in Libya, got these men and tortured and killed them. So,
but now Republicans don't need a substantive issue to try to derail Susan Rice's nomination. They need an issue that it doesn't matter. The factual realities behind it are secondary. They need something they can talk about.
Correct.
And they've done a good job of that, and they've had right-wing radio talking about it with them. And so, they alone could derail her nomination, but now she's got additional problems with the revelation of her connections to the Keystone Pipeline.
Correct. And then obviously this is another issue that you and I, have very passionate feelings about. And,
and you have Bill McKibben saying, this is not the person we want in that position. We do not want somebody like this.
Yeah, just to remind the listeners, for reasons that are, I believe, it's related to a Bush-era presidential or executive order. It was the State Department that was going to decide on the environmental impact of this pipeline because it crosses international borders.
Right.
And, as it's becoming increasingly clear, it's an ecological disaster. I mean, how many more reports do we need that the ice in Greenland and the North Pole and Antarctica is melting at a rate that's 60% higher than was predicted?
But Charles, we need the jobs.
Well, but this is the real issue.
That's the argument.
I know that's the argument. But, everybody says they're concerned about their children. This is the reason you need a social network to help people as you transition your economy.
Mm-hmm.
If all you're going to do is say, we're going to continue to produce oil at this rate and frack natural gas, and we're going to continue to use a carbon-based 18th century technology, and that's how we're going to make energy for the next 100 years, then you don't care about your children. You just care about the immediacy of a relatively small number of people to have jobs along this pipeline. You also don't care about the Midwest because you're going to watch the Midwest, water supply be poisoned.
Okay, so the real question relevant to this particular conversation are there Democrats in the U.S. Senate who are going to say, Susan Rice, bad on pipeline.
Well,
I guess I'll vote against her.
Well, I suspect not. I mean, the issue with Susan Rice is that she is probably one of the wealthiest people in the Obama administration, both through her own activity and that of her husband. They have a substantial amount of stock in 4 of Canada's largest oil producers, including Enbridge, in which I believe they have over $500,000 of stock in Enbridge. Enbridge is the main entity involved in the pipeline. Enbridge is also the company that ran the pipeline that spilled exactly the same toxic goo that comes out of these tar sands into Michigan's Kalamazoo River in 2010, which up to that point was the largest inland oil spill ever in the United States.
The bottom line is her connections to TransCanada are so strong that it's very likely that as Secretary of State she would approve the pipeline.
Well, what they're going to say is that she's going to put her holdings in a blind trust. It's the same one that that they ran for Cheney and for Mitt Romney.
How well did that work?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, and a lot of people outside the administration have said, fine. They understand why he wants Rice, and he has a right to his cabinet. and she is qualified, having worked in foreign relations for a long period of time. He wants another woman among the major departments, with Hillary Clinton leaving.
Okay, but does he also want Rice in order to forego the blame for the Keystone Pipeline when Rice goes ahead and approves it? I mean, I really don't know how we can escape blame if that happens.
Right. I don't think that's really a major reason why. And
but this
he
really
was wavering. He was wavering on the pipeline before this.
Or was he wavering, or was he putting on a show of wavering?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, we're not sitting there in the Oval Office, but it seemed as though he was leaning in that direction again because of the jobs issue. I don't think I don't know that this is a front for Obama. I think the main thing with Susan Rice is that he wants her there, and that at this point, because John McCain has made such a stink about it, he'll do anything to screw John McCain at this point. And
I don't see Obama as a vindictive kind of person. So I'm not sure that would be a motivation.
I don't think it was initially his motivation, but he, in the midst of this, his inclination in the past has been to be more compromising. But in the midst of the strident criticism, he's actually been very firm that he's not, even though he hasn't made the nomination yet. He seems very firm that he's going to stand behind her, and I think part of this is he's just sick of John McCain.
Well, I don't. Again, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to envision the Keystone Pipeline being rejected if Susan Rice becomes Secretary of State. No matter what she does.
Oh no, I agree.
The trust fund with the money,
I agree. I think it is going to be difficult.
But I think the blame will be with Obama. I mean, if Obama really doesn't want this pipeline, either he will continue to push her nomination with the caveat privately with her that she not approve the pipeline, or he will submit somebody else for the job.
So who would you submit?
I would suggest Charles Goldman. I think he can do the job.
No, they need a diplomat.
A diplomat, right? I think somebody who just cuts to the chase would be great. But it's a good question. Who would he? Maybe Jill Biden. I don't know.
I mean, clearly there are other people out there who would be qualified to do this.
Sure.
But she has very close ties to him, and she actually, according to what I've read, is one of the few people that can sway him on foreign policy, in which he listens to her quite a bit. I mean, very similar to Condoleezza Rice's role in the Bush administration.
Right.
And as much as she sort of failed upwards, having been the national security advisor during 9/11, but then ends up, to move up into the cabinet.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I don't know if the environmentalists who are opposed to the pipeline are really going to have any sway in this at all. It really is an issue of what Obama and Senate Republicans decide.
Well, I think the people who may have the most sway in this are the people in the states that this pipeline is going to traverse, who are going to force the government into court, and I suspect force the government into making some claim of eminent domain.
Well, we saw Nebraska do that successfully.
Right, and I think the people in Nebraska are not going to give up this fight. They do not want the pipeline across their state. It's interesting that the states where the pipeline is going across don't seem all that interested in the jobs.
Right. Well, that's true.
I mean, they're interested in the jobs, but they understand the cost at which these jobs would come.
Yeah. Well, Charles, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Dr. Charles
Sorry I couldn't
Goldman.
join you physically.
Well, it's okay. I guess you'll be guest hosting in a couple of weeks.
Right, on the 19th. And I think we're going to talk about whether capitalism is dead.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. Folks, next week, just a quick look ahead, we're going to talk Syria. We're going to talk Arab Spring. We're also going to talk with Marty Anderson, the newly elected Democratic state representative from the Beaverdale area. Matt McIver with the Des Moines Social Club will join us. We're going to talk about what's going on there, including the production of the Christmas Carol. I'm going to talk with Mike Alvik with Megabus. I'm going to be traveling Megabus, and it'll be good to get his take on that option. We're going to talk with Adam Sullivan also next week about his interview with Dennis Kucinich on Obama, on the wars. State Representative Dan Kelly also joining us next week. We're going to talk a little bit more about Apple's decision to move some of their Mac production here to the U.S. We're going to talk climate change. And, of course, as Charles reminded us earlier, we're going to talk about the end of the world. All right, I want to thank Dan Fry, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. And remind you that Bradshaw will be with you in about 30 minutes here on Webcast One Live.
just saying. I'm 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 just saying. Ching ching. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Feeling alone? God knows and He understands. Chat now with someone who cares at groundwire.net.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction